He announced on a cold wintry day he's running for lieutenant governor in Santa Fe, and Chuck Higgins is here. We're going to talk to him a little bit about the policies and where he stands on the issue and why he got into the race. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jemiah. It's really a treat not only just to be here, but to really appreciate what you do when it comes to having programs like this, because we don't see that very often.
Well, the show is about you guys. It's about the candidates, and we make it clear that it's not entertainment, it's strictly about, the candidates coming in, why they're running, things. People like to know, everyone likes to know.
Let's talk about that.
So let's get into why you first got into it. What was the first thought process like? Why you felt like you wanted to run? Why lieutenant governor? I think most people want to know. So, yeah.
Well, it's an interesting story, but it's a situation where over the number of years I've lived in New Mexico, I moved here in '97. And the reason I ended up here was because being a professional candy maker for over almost 35 years now, I was doing a lot of special events around the country. I would do state fairs and Renaissance festivals, anywhere from Miami to Calgary, Canada, and Edmonton, Canada. So what it did is it provided an opportunity for me to see a lot of different parts of our country and to sort of appreciate where I was at the time. And then when the opportunity came to do the New Mexico State Fair as a booth, candy maker in the booth, it's like New Mexico said, "Where have you been and welcome home." It was a warm reception, and it was such a good match. It just felt so wonderful. This is the 20th year I'll be at the New Mexico State Fair inside the Manuel Lujan building. Okay. And we have a reputation at the fair of high quality, integrity, and the repeat business is incredible. So,
so what was the first year when you did the state fair here?
I have to subtract 20 from this year.
Okay, so it was 20 years ago, exactly.
Yeah, I was actually doing the fair as a vendor from out of state, and then the reception here was so positive.
So you fell in love with New Mexico.
And it just gave me this great big hug and said, "Welcome home." It was really, really gratifying. So it took a couple of years to make the relocation, and as they say we've lived happily ever after. But I've been following politics. Well, I came from New Orleans for a while, and following the politics there and comparing to New Mexico. And I grew up in a little bitty town in northwest Iowa, near Lake Okoboji. And the small town was like 250 people. Mm-hmm. And it was just a very relaxed lifestyle. And back then we didn't have, it was all white people. It was all, Anglos. So the growing up experience was kind of isolated, if you will. But in getting around and maturing and getting out, I've had a chance to
This is in Iowa.
Yeah, that's where I grew up.
That's where you grew up, yeah.
And eventually, getting out and moving around, I've been introduced to the multicultural people in this country, and it's been really exciting. So, in following politics through the years, but continuing to be a small entrepreneur, for example, I started selling worms when I was 6 years old. I'd go out in the backyard and pick up worms and sell them to the fishermen. So I've always been kind of an entrepreneurial sort of spirit all these years. But I've always watched the political processes no matter where I've been. Mm-hmm. And moving to New Mexico was equally as exciting. And I've been following it very closely for a number of years. And what happened was the decision kind of evolved. All of a sudden, not really all of a sudden, but it just evolved and said, I can make a difference here. I think there are some things going on in this state that can be improved. We do have educational issues. We have people who don't know where the next meal is coming from. We have people who don't know where they're going to spend the night. And these are issues until they become personalized. For example, what's an issue to maybe you or me is actually a situation for someone who doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. And I feel strongly that I can make a difference in that regard. Now, the lieutenant governor is in a situation where, by the Constitution, there are certain required things to be done. But my personal feeling is that that office has a lot of influence. And when the lieutenant governor goes after a project, it has every reason to be successful because the influence of that office is being put to work. And that's the goal that I have, is to choose some issues like well, education and food insecurity and homelessness.
Was there
to work
anything
on.
in specific that you felt that this is the reason why I would like to get in there? Was it education? Was it safety and security? Was it anything else, political, ideological thing? Was there anything that you say, well, this is the reason I want to run? Or it was just a broad set of things?
It has a lot to do with just seeing what's going on. Our state is somewhat like we're looking at on the national scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's a situation here, for example, well, let me just back up a bit. There's an expression in politics, a label that says public servant.
Correct.
And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. To me, when you have someone who watches the legislature pass a minimum wage bill
Mm-hmm.
that goes from $7.50 to $8.50, that simple dollar an hour means a lot to people who earn $7.50 an hour. If they happen to have a 40-hour week, then we're looking at $40 more per week. That means another bag or two of groceries. I mean, it's very personalized. And again, it moves from being an issue to a situation. And the situation is, it's hard to make ends meet when you're only earning $7.50 an hour.
Being the economy the way it is becoming more and more tougher for people. And this economy in New Mexico has been stagnant for a while. We lost a lot of jobs there and stuff. So I feel that it was more the economic reasons, I think, where you felt that you could make a difference there, right?
The larger reason is I care about people.
Okay.
I mean, that's really what it's all about. So when you have someone who's an elected person who vetoes a $1 an hour increase for minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
to me that's more of not a public servant as much as it is a corporate servant. That bothers me. And we can stand back and talk about it, but sometimes you have to step up to the plate and say, I choose to make a difference. Another thing is when you have rules put in place for the mining and extracting industries that are designed to protect the water supply. Something as simple as lining a pit so that when the unpleasant materials come out of the ground,
Sure.
they're contained and they don't go into the groundwater. If you have a person who works hard to remove those restrictions or those guidelines and safety guidelines, to me that's a corporate servant. That's not a public servant. And then when you have someone who's elected to office who will shift the tax responsibilities from corporations to the...
I'm going to have to interrupt you a little bit.
Okay.
We'll take a short break.
Okay.
End of the first segment there. When we come back, we'll pick it up right where I think you're talking about environment. And
I'm talking about
things of that sort.
environment, I'm talking about taxes, I'm talking about the people of New
Exactly.
Mexico.
Yeah. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with Chuck Higgins.